Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. I am David Gouthro, back with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Today, I have the pleasure of having Rachel Platt as my guest. Welcome, Rachel.
So glad to be with you, David. Thank you for having me.
So, Rachel, when we were first started chatting, you'd suggested that we'd had a short conversation about something that might be interesting to explore, which is how do you make work not suck? And I think there's a lot of people that would like to explore that. Like, how do you make work not suck? So, maybe I could just start with the question: what does it mean for work to suck? Like when you say that, what's embodied or embrace that concept of sucky work?
You can look at it from so many different perspectives. I mostly work with leadership teams,
Mhm.
and what they're saying is when work sucks is often they don't have the team that is as engaged, that is taking initiative. They feel like they're often pulling teeth. They're trying to read people's minds, and they think that that sucks. And on the other hand, you have individual employees who think that work is sucking the life out of
Mm,
them.
mm.
The expectations are sky high. The cost of living is going up. Increases to salary and bonuses are not necessarily increasing at the same time, depending on where you are in the world. Your healthcare costs or your return to work, all of these things are not creating a culture where we're making work work for people. That's the official way that I talk about it. Let's make work work. But the real way between you and me is how do we make work not suck so much for everybody? And so those are the things that I focus on with organizations.
So we've got lots to work with there. So let me step back and say, if I was an outside observer, what would I see in an organization where work sucks? How would you characterize it? Two organizations, one where work works, one where work sucks. What's the difference between the two? Because then we can explore how to get from one to the other.
Absolutely. If you have high turnover, you are hiring new people and you are quickly shuffling through them. If your retention is not good, your workplace sucks. If it takes you 14 interviews to hire someone new, your workplace sucks. If you have people who are constantly asking, what's next? What's next? What's next? Your workplace sucks. If you have managers who are sitting around complaining about their teams and not actually leading their teams or don't know how to lead their teams, guess what? Your workplace sucks. Those are some really quick, the metrics are just so quick and easy to see. If you can't hire, if you can't retain, if you don't have people who are being promoted, you got a problem that you need to deal with.
So then, sometimes there's in organizations, there's things that are within your control or influence and things not. So, some might hear that whole list of things, say, well, you just have to throw more money at it. And oftentimes that's one of the things you can't do. So in the absence of just throwing money at some of these issues, that doesn't necessarily makes it less sucky, but it's more tolerable because people say, I'll put up with it because of getting more money. What are some things you can do to make work work?
Well, if I only had very limited dollars to spend, I would focus on my managers, my direct people leaders, because those are typically the folks who are closest to how the work gets done, they understand where the bottlenecks are, and they know who your real culture carriers are. So organizations are talking about culture, 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 culture. Culture is not having ping pong tables.
Mm,
Culture is not pizza on Fridays and jeans, wearing jeans to work. All of
mm.
those are lovely things, but that's not culture. Culture is being able to resolve issues, eliminate barriers. So, investing in your managers so that they can best lead people, they know what's in scope for them to be able to make shifts, redesign work, reallocate responsibilities, decide this is no longer a priority. Those are the things that really can make work successful if your managers feel empowered to be able to make those decisions.
So this sounds great. So my question would be, how do you go about doing that?
Yep.
So I'm working with one client where they have a number of different locations, and getting people together face to face is a real challenge. And pulling them out of the day-to-day work when they get together, usually it's transactional in nature. It's about solving something, fixing something. So, how do you work with managers in a way that they start to, to shift the way that they're doing things and understand why they need to be doing things differently?
It does take an investment of time. It does not have to be face to face. It can be done. I mean, the trends within learning and development really are micro learnings, short. It can be a half an hour or less, even, of here's the issue. Here's how we would like to handle this going forward. Let's give you a framework. Let's give you some usable tools to start using. And you need to know that next week, I'm going to ask you,
Mm.
did you do this? Did you try this? What worked? What didn't? Because it's not about frameworks. It's not about, oh, here's the great new study that someone came out with. It's how you apply it in your workplace. And so learning from each other, somebody being brave enough to say, I tried this. We could pick any topic, but let's just take, feedback.
Right.
I have to sit down with somebody and I have to have a really difficult conversation with them. Okay, so in a quick meeting, we're going to talk about, hey, what's a structure that you can use to give objective feedback? Okay, here's the model. I'm going to give you a tool that's going to walk you through how to use the model. I'm going to say to you, if you want to practice beforehand, feel free, call me, call another leader who's really good at it, whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you, how did it go? What worked? What didn't work? What would you tell other people who haven't had an opportunity to use this because they don't have to have a difficult conversation right now? What can they learn from your experience? How can we all raise the boat?
So,
That's
how
cheap
do you
and easy.
balance between the need to build awareness, but also build skill? Because I have sometimes seen it where organizations provide people with lots of content, like the micro learning,
Okay.
micro presentations, and things like that. And sometimes they go out feeling less confident that they can actually do it. So how do you build in time for that, for actually doing some skill building? It's hard. I think you can do it online. I find a lot of times online isn't used very well because it's just presenting information. People haven't thought through how you design it so they can interact, whether it be on Zoom or Teams or something like that, where they get to practice these things. So, how do you move from the awareness of managers to the implementation of the skills? And a secondary question that's a little bit on a tangent is I find some people really good at giving all this information to the managers and saying, "Okay, manager, you need to hold your people accountable."
Now do it.
But then they don't hold their own managers accountable, right? It's just like,
Yes.
pass it down, but I'm trusting you to do it. Yet they don't follow up with their managers to see if they're passing the skills and the implementation down.
Yes, 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 and yes. Can that just be the answer there? All of that is true, what
Or
you just said, David.
conversation's over. Next.
Great, thanks. Look, is it ideal? No. Is it doable to have so I have a colleague who doesn't call them breakout rooms, he calls them breakthrough rooms. I'm not sure if you've heard that,
No, I
uh,
like it.
term. I kind of like it. I forget to use it, but I do kind of like it. And he will really use the breakout rooms on Zoom or in Teams
Mm.
in a way that gives people the opportunity to practice. Again, in short ways, I'm sorry, in short time periods, let's practice. And let's be let's build enough trust. Let's have strong enough relationships, enough psychological safety for folks to be able to say, I'm not getting it. I need more practice. Or, hey, can can I do this again with you? Frankly, I have one client who's using AI for it. You could actually have a conversation with ChatGPT and say, here's what I want to say to this other person. And you can voice record yourself and it will give you feedback on it. And this is not even like any sophisticated tools. You can just use it in a free version of ChatGPT. Now be careful about the private information that you might put in there and
Oh,
all
yeah.
of those caveats.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
like, if you wanna practice, if you're not feeling confident in yourself, then use the tools that you have available. Go to someone in your organization that you know does it well and be a little vulnerable and just say, "I've seen you do it well. Can I practice with you for 15 minutes?" Most people would be honored
Mhm.
and flattered that you asked them. I can't imagine anyone saying no. So
You know,
take advantage.
I had a conversation the other day. We were talking about models for leadership or metaphors for leadership, and we ended up chatting about the notion of the leader being like a conductor. Then, if you think of the musicians, there's kind of three different roles that they have, or three different interactions. So, one is where they take lessons, two is where they have rehearsals, and three is where they perform. And you'll almost need all three of these. So, it's really hard to go into a rehearsal if you don't have the basic skills. And once you're in the rehearsal, the conductor makes no noise, like absolutely none, but they're guiding everyone else to do it. And it seems that there needs to be a little bit of each of those, that people need to develop the skills to do these things, an opportunity to rehearse them, which is like you're talking about, and then actually perform.
Yes, that's a great metaphor. May I borrow it?
I insist that you use it, modify it, magnify it, and then let me know how it goes.
You got it.
So before we go any further, Rachel, maybe you could, so two things. I'd like our listeners to know a little bit about your practice, what the work is
Mhm.
you do. And then if you have an example without revealing names of sort of you know, a client engagement that you had that you said, this went so well. And here is what we did in order to get that kind of an outcome. But first of all, a little bit about Rachel Platt, who you are, what your real name is, and what you do, how you help your clients. And then if we could to get an example of one of those.
Absolutely. So my real name, is Rachel Platt. I am the CEO of Platinum Consulting. We do people strategy work, and what
So
that
so I have
means.
to stop you, Rachel, because people aren't
Yeah.
going to see it. When you say platinum, it's with a double T in the Platt, which I think is very cool.
Yes. So my last name is Platt, and my company name is Platinum, Platt, and then spelled the rest.
Sorry
Uh,
to interrupt. I just
much
loved it.
it's thank you very much. As you and I have discussed, much better than platypus, or some of the other, ways to use plat. Splat would not have these just would not have been good business names. Anyway, um, we do people strategy work, and what that means is we help organizations that are or are aspiring to move beyond transactional, compliance-based HR and really figure out how to make their people strategy align with their business strategy. How do you execute on that? How do you say exactly what you and I are talking about? We need our managers to feel more empowered to give feedback, positive or constructive feedback. We need to have the skills to do it. We need them to have the skills, we need them to have the confidence, and we need them to know that we've got their back when it comes to ensuring that we are, empowering them to make smart decisions for the good of the business that aligns with what our strategy and what our priorities are. There's too many people who feel like they're being hung out to dry, if you will, which is another way that you know that work sucks. Um, so here's an example. There's so many examples, but I have pretty a real good size not-for-profit organization. It's a well-known organization, close to 700 employees,
Mhm.
multiple locations, um, with an international group of stakeholders. One of the real issues that they are struggling with is with all of these different locations and different programs that they have, it's their own, and they're a leadership organization. Their own employees struggle with understanding what a promotional or career path looks like.
Mm.
They
Okay.
really are struggling with what competencies are required to imp increase, their likelihood of being promoted. So, there's a lot of work that goes into that. We've done many focus groups, we've done some surveys, and we recognized that people need to feel safe to speak
Mhm.
their mind. Even though they are a leadership organization, occasionally there are pockets of employees who feel like the shoemaker's kids have no shoes. We teach other people how to do this, but we don't do it for ourselves. So, some of the work that we have done has really been, gathering this data in a very far reaching, very including diverse groups by any category that you can possibly think of, to make sure that we had a very holistic viewpoint of employee views, of executive views, and coming back to come up with what are the core competencies that make people successful at this organization. The most successful people are able to do X. The people who want to be the most successful are learning and improving their skills in X. Um, and we've had a tremendous amount of success and buy-in so far. There have been some uncomfortable meetings, um, but trying to figure out, um, really how this way of thinking works its way through the evaluation process, the interviewing process, um, when we are talking about who's up for promotion, putting all of these pieces together, that's the holistic work that makes work not suck. That's what makes work work, when there's shared language, when there's a reference that you can point out and you can give people guidance based upon the fact that you have made certain definitions very explicit. They're available for people to see. It's not like bottled up in people's minds.
So I can see the value in doing that. And one of the things I wonder about, well, a number of things. One is how long it takes to actually implement something like that. But with an organization like that, it seems to me, if, especially if it's a leadership organization, that one might run into a little bit of denial about, we don't have that problem here. We teach people stuff, right? Depend upon where you are in the organization. And then there's structures that need to be set up, processes that need to be set up, perhaps standard operating procedures and opportunities to help senior executives be held accountable in a gentle way when they're not being consistent with what they're talking about. And so I'm curious, where is the overlap between the kind of culture that you're talking about and basically I would say the culture is when people are doing all those things that we
Yes.
could use words to time to describe that culture. How does culture or how do values and culture interrelate?
It's such a good question, and I think there's no one answer. There's lots of research that is out there. There's lots of definitions for those words and those thoughts. Um, in my world, I boil it down to doing what you say you're going to do
Mhm, mhm.
and saying what you are doing. Honestly, you can say, aspirationally, we wish that we were doing X, but we're still improving in this area. We've got a long way to go.
So an
And
honest self-assessment.
honest self-assessment is the best way to align your values and your culture.
Hmm.
Or let me actually caveat that. The values and the culture of an organization that I want to be working in,
Oh, okay.
that I think doesn't suck. Because there are some organizations who, whether it's their values that are written on the wall or not, um, the way that they behave actually says that their values are, we keep tight control over our information and do what we say to do.
So it must be a challenge in some organizations where you'd like to have the kind of culture as a senior management team you want to have out there. Sometimes there are boards that say, we don't really care if work sucks. We want to see a return on our investment, that of the shareholders. So it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
It's nice if you have the alignment with the board, where you have a strong HR committee, for example, that wants to make sure that people that work works there. So I'm jumping all over the place here, but a question that I had in mind previously when you were talking about empowering people. I remember working with a client quite a few years ago. And at that time, it was very clear what you did to move up with the organization, all the step by step, all the measurements and stuff like that. And the senior management team figured that, you know what, we need people to be taking more responsibility. We need to empower our people. So there was these big announcements that came down. Okay, you are now empowered to make your own decisions. And by the way, you're accountable. And they were shocked. Whoever said, "Great, we're finally empowered. What do you want us to do?" And it was like, no, no, no,
No, no.
no, right? You don't understand. Maybe could you just say a word about what it means to empower someone and how and is it a structure? Is it a feeling that someone has? I feel empowered. How do you bring that about? Because that's still a word that gets tossed around a lot. I think there's still a lot of confusion about first of all, do you want to empower people or do you just want them to do what they're supposed to do? And if you
Right.
do want to do it, how do you make that shift to them feeling empowered and doing the kinds of things that are going to be focused on the best interests of the company? I realize that's kind of a big question, but
That is a big question. What I recently had a conversation with one of my clients about this topic and about the fact that they want their employees to be empowered and to take more initiative, exactly like you just said. And my question was, do you allow them to make mistakes?
mm,
What happens when something doesn't work? What guardrails are in place to pull the plug on something that maybe you've invested substantial time, substantial dollars, whatever resources you've invested them, and you recognize that this is not working. And maybe it's a pet project or a something that your champion is, one of your key executives. What's in place to put those guardrails in? That's how someone feels empowered when it's your thoughts, your opinions, your perspective matters, and you feel confident that you've put in place the why can I not think of the word? It just went out of my head. But you have put in place just the help me.
Systems,
What's a
processes.
right,
Uh,
the processes that would, like, that would mitigate disaster.
mm,
You have second plans, tertiary plans, all of those. There is a word for that, I just can't think of it. Um, but you've done your part. You've been a thoughtful, planned, strategic thinker for the part of the project that you own.
mhm.
And you've been empowered to make it happen. When you know that you are really empowered, not just somebody waving a magic wand over your head and poof, all of a sudden you're empowered. But you know that you're really empowered when you also feel confident that you can say, we made a mistake. Now, there's some mistakes that you can't fix, and your job may be on the line. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But most mistakes, you want your best employees to feel that are you trust their judgment enough to say, we trust you to make good recommendations for the good or the bad. We trust you to say the ugly thing that nobody wants to say. And in fact, we insist that you do it, and we're going to learn from it.
So there's a number of different memories that you're triggering for me here, Rachel. And one of them is doing some work with a bank back east, and it was a time when the, things weren't going really well for the banks. There were a lot of losses and things like that. I remember the head of this group, I think it was the investment and corporate bank, that I remember him saying, "You know what? I am never going to get on your case for making an error in judgment. That you did the best you could. I trust that you did that. If it didn't work, like you said, Rachel, let's learn from it." Said, what I don't have any tolerance for is if it's failure to execute an agreed upon process, because that's
Yes.
totally avoidable. That's different from an error in judgment. And I also find this years ago, there used to be much more focus on being a learning organization, but we need to be a learning organization. For some organizations, it's like a bandwagon to jump onto. And I can think of two organizations, one that took it seriously. Well, they both took it seriously, but one actually did some things that would say that we really mean it and others not. So with one organization, their view of when something went wrong, what they do is have what they called a look back. A
A
look back.
postmortem is what
Well,
we call them.
same sort of thing. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly, which doesn't exactly inspire people to come forward. And the notion
Yes.
of the look back was who to blame. Who to blame, and it had that tone. So people got really, really effective at hiding and staying low and not surfacing information, right? Just the language, the approach to being a learning organization was toxic. There was another organization, a telecommunications firm, that a project manager, when his project didn't work out for whatever reason, he'd get his team together to have what he called a near miss lunch. And the context for that is, let's look at what we did well so we don't lose it and do that the next time, and what didn't work well, and let's build on it and learn from it. So totally different context. One was about how do we surface it, the other was, unintentionally suppressing it. And that was before all like Amy Edmondson's work and others on psychological safety came up. But
Right.
one fellow made it psychologically safe. Like there was no blame, there was no attribution because you didn't have to, because people stepped up and said, this is what I did. Not quite the case in that other organization. So, the intention is good, but what's the actual mechanisms that are put in place and and the culture for dealing with failures, which I think, because we're not telling people go out and make mistakes. That's the wrong message, right? But you go out there and mistakes are a natural part of doing something that hasn't been done before. And that may
Yes.
be where our greatest competitive advantage is going to lie, when we're willing to try some things and learn from it that our competitors do not.
So that brings two thoughts to my mind. I have no idea who said we win or we learn. But it's a good it's a I like it. The other thing, and a model that one of my client that I introduced for one of my clients. So my all-time favorite tool, because frankly, you could use it for almost anything. It's just a start, stop, continue model.
Mm, mhm,
Um, and so we, they call it in their organization, they do call it a postmortem. It
mhm,
has already died. Let's figure it out. But like you said, this is not a look back of let's cast blame. They do
mhm,
everything in a, if we were to start again, what would we know? What would we, what would we, how would we do it? What would
mm,
we stop doing immediately if we were to, because we've learned?
mhm,
And what would we continue doing? And without names, without departments, it's just big picture, starting from big picture down to like little tactical things, but not Rachel did or didn't do this, but we should continue. And one of the things that saw that they did really well, their leader, was made everyone use the word we. We must, not I, not you, but it was we.
mhm,
And that really created a it was a team spirit to it all. B, the interdependencies of all of us on each other. C, sometimes we can see things that I
mm,
alone cannot see or you alone cannot see.
mhm.
And I just thought that they did such a exceptional job. Like I gave them stop, start, and continue, and they ran with it. Um, and it really worked.
That's so cool. I just they go, "We all the way home," and all that.
Wee, wee,
So
wee.
I'm gonna put you perhaps on the spot a little bit, Rachel, although I have a hunch that it won't be an issue at all. So, for people that are listening, because I like people to have something to think about what to do after the conversations. What are 3 or 4 factors they could look at in their organization that if it's present, could say, "Our work is working," and if they're not present, they might come to the conclusion that our work is sucking and perhaps we should have the courage to bring that up and do something about it. So it doesn't have to be 3, but just a few things that, this I have a line of sight to these kinds of things. And yeah, work's working or work's actually kind of sucking. I think it'd be nice if we could do something about it.
Um, I would say one of the big things that I have seen a real trend on of late is that there's a lack of clarity. People wrote job descriptions when you hired someone X
Mhm.
number of eons ago, and those job descriptions have never truly been updated for the work that someone is doing today, and particularly as so many organizations are thinking about automation and AI and how maybe to redesign certain aspects of work. It is a really good time, if you do not already have it, to get people thinking about what are they specifically responsible for? What are the expectations and what success looks like in that role? Not just a job description, like a list of bullet points,
Mm.
but what does success look like? And how clearly can you articulate that so that both the supervisor and the individual get clarity
Mhm.
on what's expected, what's within scope, what's without of scope, maybe reprioritize some of the things, maybe take an opportunity to say, "Oh my gosh, you're still doing that? I had no idea. Let's stop doing that, or let's figure out
Mhm.
how to do that in a different way." Or, "You've been promoted 4 times, you're still doing that task? Yes, I know that you love doing it and you're faster and better at it than someone else, but really, the most junior person on the team needs to be doing that work."
Okay. All
So
right.
that's a big number 1, 2, sort of, and 3. They all agree. It flows together of the job description, the inputs, the outputs, like what work comes in, what work goes out, how those processes work, what success looks like. That is a number one. If you have that in place,
Mm.
your likelihood of working is much, much higher. I don't have a percentage. I don't have the stats, but I'm sure, I mean, I know that Gallup does research on this all the time about organizations with well-documented processes, not just SOPs, but like real scope of roles. When people have clarity, they do better work.
So that was such a big one. I'm only gonna ask you for one more,
Okay.
right? So though, and the nice thing I like about this, one of the nice things that I like about this is you can see if it's happening or not,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like the optics are very clear, so you
Yes.
can't deny it. So I love that. So is there anything that's more of um, a sense of it? Like, I don't know, like about the vibe, or I'm not even sure what I'm asking here, Rachel, but, something else to look at. Do we have this or do we not have this?
Um, I'm sure if you gave me more time, I would think of a million other things, but for some reason, what popped into my head is, are people asking for opportunities to do new things?
Okay.
Are people asking to stretch? Are people asking to have new experiences, to be included in meetings that maybe they don't have a purpose, but they're just curious to learn? Are your people curious is a good sign of you're a culture that people want to be part of. And
See, I'd say what you said is actually more than curious. It's curious, but the willingness to grow
yes,
is is
yes,
is a huge
hungry,
one.
hungry for learning.
Yeah, that's
You
great.
know, yeah.
I'll add a third one, and that's that. And it may have absolutely no base whatsoever, but I look around to see if people seem to be having a good time. Just
If
like
they're
they have a
laughing,
smile on their face, do they look miserable, right?
yes.
And there's other factors that come into play, but, okay. So let me see. In our conversation today, a couple of things I wanna make sure I remember is with limited resources, focus on the managers first, work with them, help them be successful. I loved the phrase that you used about breakthrough rooms. Can remember that
Gotta
one.
give someone else credit. I don't get credit for it, but it's a good one.
You
Let's
you
spread it.
you pass it on, take whatever credit you wish and pass the rest on. The note, the start, stop, continue is a good reminder around how we learn it and how we change. And, the use of the phrase "we" from some of that you were talking about, that sense we're in this together, not that individual competitive kind of thing. And then the two specific things about, do you have these? So clarity regarding things like the current work that you're doing, is it updated? Does it have clear expectations? Does it show what success looks like so people can move towards that? And the second big one as well, do people seem willing to want to do more, to learn, to grow? And not everyone will, but that's a good thing. And if there's space for them to do that, and then, smile or miserable, that's mine.
I like smile or miserable. I think that's a good indicator as well.
So so Rachel, thanks for being my guest here today. I'll make sure that we put your contact information in the program notes. So someone
Excellent.
I didn't say, so what part of the world are you in, Rachel? I should ask you that.
So I live outside of Washington, DC.
Okay.
Don't hold it against me, please. Um, please don't hold it against me. I work with organizations across the US and Canada, as well as, I have 1 or 2 clients that are in Europe.
Okay.
Um,
I was more just thinking like time zone wise. It's
Time
nice to
zone,
know we're on the
I am
country.
in Eastern time, but I don't sleep that well, I gotta be honest. Like, you could almost, contact me at any time, I'll get back to you.
So people could reach out to you. Well, once
Yes.
again, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and the insights that certainly I got, and hopefully our listeners do as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great time together.
David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives. The only guarantee that I can provide is that next week there will be another guest with a different perspective on something. Thanks, and come on back again. Subscribe now because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.